Hello and welcome to this new video. In this one we are going to take a look at another opening principle, which is about taking the center and why it is so important. So usually whoever controls the center in chess in most games is the one who has the advantage, and the most classical way to take the center is to have two pawns in the center, like on e4 and d4, otherwise for black d5 and e5. Of course, sometimes in modern chess we have some hyper-modern openings like the Grunfeld defense or the King's Indian, stuff like this, where the point is to give the opponent the center and then start attacking it a bit later. Though playing like this is a bit more difficult, generally more difficult than just taking the center normally. Of course, white also has some openings like the Reti, the English, and usually in such openings the bishop is fianchettoed, because otherwise it is hard to put any sort of pressure on the center, and if he doesn't fianchetto, then usually white doesn't really have any advantage. So in this video we'll take a look at 3 games in which taking the center was essential, and even one slip, one misguided move which does not control the center, how it can end badly. Though usually the problems are more complex, but here we will see them in a very raw form. So this was a game between Bobby Fischer and Samuel Reshevsky. This was quite a while ago, of course, but this game has stuck through the ages. It's become a classic, and we will probably see why. So it started as the Sicilian. Here we have the accelerated dragon Sicilian, bishop e3, bishop g7. Here white could opt for the Marozzi bind with c4, or as he played in the game with knight c3, knight f6, bishop c4, stopping d5, castles, and bishop b3. So this is quite normal. Both players have brought out their pieces to sensible squares, and next black should probably continue developing with d6 to open up this bishop. Some other variations are also possible, for example a5, with the point that after castles a4, trying to deflect the defenders from the e4 point. This is also possible, but here black decided on a move that kind of makes sense but is not very appropriate, knight a5, and this knight has strayed away from the center. Of course it does want to take the bishop pair, but at the moment black is not well enough developed to take advantage of something like the bishop pair, and Fischer has punished this move quite swiftly. e5, very nice move, because this is now possible due to the knight not being on c6, and black has lost control of the central 4 squares, and now black is in big trouble. He plays knight e8, which is the most natural move, but unfortunately this is losing outright. Black should have taken on b3, white would take on f6, white can take on a1, and after taking on g7, rook e8 and queen takes a1. At the end of this forced line, white has 2 pieces for the rook, 2 knights for the rook, and black will take a pawn at some point, but the 2 pieces should be better because there are a lot of pieces on the board, and the rooks don't have very open lines just yet. So white is better here, but black could fight on. Instead knight e8 was played, and now Fischer played a tactic that has been studied for the ages, which is bishop takes f7, very nice move, and now the black king has to take, because if rook takes, then the point is knight e6, and this queen has been caught on d8. Very interestingly, it cannot go anywhere, but the bishop and the knight take away all the squares. Also this knight takes away a5. So black took with the king, and the white's move again is knight e6, and the white has won the queen. Here black cannot take with the king because of various checkmates, the simplest probably being queen d5, g4, but other moves win as well, like king like pawn to e6 as well, but this is good enough. Queen g2, threatening 3 checkmates in one, and there's no way to defend from all of them. So black took the knight, and white has a queen and a pawn for 2 pieces. And even though it took a while for Fischer to realize his advantage, it was not really difficult at any point. So we do not have to see the rest of the game. Here black lost quite quickly due to one misstep away from the center, and it can really be like that sometimes. Okay, the next game we'll see another similar type of tragedy. So white started with a knight f3. We will take a look at this from the black side. Knight f3, knight f6, and g3. So white is not exactly taking the center yet, and black can take some space on the queen side with b5. And usually we shouldn't move flank pawns like this when the opponent has taken the center, but now that there are no pawns in the center, this move is justified. One of white's ideas here is to play with c4 to control the d5 square, and this move doesn't allow it. Here white plays knight a3, and this is not a very good move because the knight will not be very good on the a3 square, although it does develop with tempo and it forces black to do something about it. It's not going to be a very good move in general. Here it's very natural to play b4, but now the knight would be allowed to go to the center, and if black continues kicking it around, it will be very safe on a3. And now black has overextended a little bit, and with moves like a3, white can start chipping away at this very advanced pawn. So instead black plays a6, restricting this knight further, and white plays c4, and now black plays e5, which is a very nice move, and this is the reason black took space on the queen side to distract this knight, and now black can attack in the center while white is not really developed. The threat is e4, and there's actually not that much white can do about this. Of course, the first question is what if white takes the pawn. Here black would have played bishop b7, attacking the rook on h1. The knight should go back, and now black can get rid of this knight to take the pawn on c4. And in this position, black has a lot more of the center with d5, c5, d4 coming, and black should be better positionally. And of course, white does have the unopposed dark squared bishop, but it might get blocked after the pawns go to d4, and black is a little bit better. So this is a very nice pawn sacrifice. So b3 was played, and black plays e4, and now this knight has to go somewhere. It went to h4. If it had gone to the center with knight d4, then it would get kicked around even more with c5. If it wants to go to f5, then d5 even, attacking the knight like this, and the white is under tremendous pressure. So another knight goes to the rim. As we know, the knight on the rim is dim, and the reason is that they don't really usually influence much of the center because they can only see so far, and it will also take a while for them to get back in the game. For example, both of these knights need 2 moves to go to some kind of central squares. Now black plays bishop c5. Black could also play d5 immediately, and after this then bishop c5. But black is trying to develop quickly. Already there are some ideas on f2 with knight g4, etc. So knight c2, white tries to improve their knights, and d5. Black is in complete control of the center, and white really needs to develop. At this point, white should take on d5, and the black has a lot of promising variations. For example, knight g4, attacking here, white should block, and after bishop e7, and black will be trying to attack on the light squares now, and trying to eliminate this knight. Otherwise, knight e5, looking at the d3 squares and f3. Also, this bishop may go to g4, and the white will attack the weakened, and black will attack the weakened squares. Instead, white plays this move d4, and this invites white's queen into the game, but without the bishops developed, this will not end very well, as white doesn't really have much control of the center, and this queen will become a target. Black took. Black could also play bishop e7, and this would give him quite a comfortable position, but black wanted more. It makes sense to open up the center when our pieces are better placed. He took. Here, had white taken with the pawn, then after castles and rook e8, black has an annoying initiative. It's very uncomfortable for white's pieces, especially the knights and the king. So queen d3 happens. Now black develops with knight c6, already threatening something like knight e5, attacking the queen again, using it as a target to improve the pieces with tempo. Here instead black could have taken here, and then played knight c6, but then the queen gets a new square on b3, so this wouldn't be as accurate. So knight c6 is a strong move, and here white really should have played bishop f4 to again develop some kind of pieces, control some squares in the center, namely e5, and here black's knight would at least not be able to go to e5 with tempo. Instead, c takes d5 happens. Black doesn't recapture, instead he improves the knight with tempo, knight e5. Look at all the centralized pieces for black and the decentralized pieces for white. Queen c3, but this already loses tactically. Instead, after queen d1, for example knight e to g4, attacking here, then knight e4, attacking here again, white is in big trouble. For example f3, knight g to f2, queen e2, and here black will get probably a rook and a pawn for two knights, but at the end of this, white will still have to waste a lot of time to take this knight. g5 is an annoying threat. Black will also take on d5. The bishop will be strong on this diagonal, and white is in a lot of trouble. Of course, he can try to resist, but objectively it's quite dangerous. Instead, queen c3 was played, but this loses outright to bishop takes f2, a simple deflection tactic, deflecting the king to f2 to give a fork on e4, for example like this. So king d1 was played, but after queen d5, bishop d2 and knight e4, white resigned, and it's a nice picture at the end of this game. All of black's pieces are in the center, while white's pieces are not, and not to mention they're also not very well developed. So the last of these examples will be a classical game by Bent Larsen against Boris Spassky, and already on move 1, white plays b3. This was a specialty of Larsen, but with this move, white does not really do anything in the center, so according to the opening principles, this should be considered a mistake. So black takes the center with e5. Again, we will switch to black's point of view. Bishop b2, knight c6, and here c4. So this is possible. We're kind of playing some kind of reversed Sicilian, but we can notice that white is not really attacking much of the center. He's only playing on the flank, while black can develop naturally. Probably a little bit better was e3, with the idea to play bishop b5 to exert at least some pressure on e5. Sometimes there are ideas of f4 as well. So instead c4 was played, knight f6, and now white plays knight f3. And here the knight can be attacked with tempo, so this is also not a very good square for a white piece. e4, nice move, gaining more space in the center, taking the knight away, and we can see why taking the center is important. To say the least, white has less space for his pieces. For example, now the natural f3 square is not for white. Now black continues developing with tempo, bishop c5, white takes, black takes back with the d pawn to open up the d file for his queen and potentially the rook, and also to open up his bishop. e3 and the bishop f5. So we can take a look at this position. Already on move 7, black has a lot more pieces developed, and he also has a lot more space due to this e4 pawn, and already white's position is in trouble. Queen c2, and now black plays a very nice move, which is queen e7, not naturally castling kingside. Instead, he wants to castle queenside, because this also puts the black rook on a very nice square on d8, on the only half-open file, and the black sees that he has more pieces developed, so it makes sense to try to get some kind of initiative on the king side. So bishop e2 and castles queenside. So now black is basically fully developed, apart from this rook on h8. And now it's hard for white to do anything, but he should probably play knight c3 with the idea to eventually castle queenside to at least connect the rooks and then try to fight from there. Instead, white plays f4 to gain some space on the king side. Black cannot take because this will hang with check. So here instead black decides to attack the king side, even though white's king is not on the king side. The king side still becomes a target of attack. Knight g4. Now this knight exerts pressure on the king side, and the main ideas are to take on e3 with either the knight or the bishop, and this will become extremely dangerous. White decides to play g3 to stop some queen h4 ideas, and now black finds a very nice move to activate the last piece which isn't playing with the move h5. And this move g3 should signal our h-pawn all the time, especially if the rook is still on h8. Now we will play h4 and create big tension in the king side, which will benefit our rook on h8. White plays h3, but already it is a bit too late to develop pieces. For example, if knight c3, black wins with the nice sacrifice, rook takes d2, with the idea to take another pawn on e3. Then this queen is a bit stuck. For example, if queen c2, we can give this check. If the king goes to f1 or d1, then knight e3 will win the queen. And if d2, amongst other things, there is a discovered check on the queen with e3. Otherwise, the queen can't really go anywhere else. If here, worst case, we can go rook d8 or just bishop c2, bishop f2, and then rook d8, winning the queen at least. So h3 was played, and now black, instead of going back, had to calculate some tactics to win the game. And in such positions, we should feel that there has to be something. All of our pieces are developed. The white king is stuck in the center, the rooks are in the corners, and black played a nice move h4, opening up the position on the king side completely. Taking on e3 might have also worked, but h4 is very convincing. Now white took the knight with the pawn. If he had taken with the bishop, then something similar would happen, hg. And now, for example, rook g1 to not allow the other rook to infiltrate. After rook h2, black has plenty of threats like queen to h4, and also bishop takes e3 using the pin on the second rank. So instead h takes g4 happens, black opens the h file, white moves the rook, and now black finds a nice tactical blow to end the game, which is rook to h1, sacrificing the rook, and the white took it. And after g2, it turns out the black queen will enter with great effect. And rook f1 was played. Rook g1 looks more natural, but here after queen h4, the game is basically done. After this, black can either take on e3, winning the rook on g1, or just play queen to h1, also winning the rook on g1, and continuing his attack. So rook f1 was played, check, and after taking the rook while queening, white resigned, probably because after taking back in bishop g4, this will just end in checkmate. After this, there's this, and here there is checkmate as well. So Hopefully the significance of the center was understood, and thanks for watching. Subscribe and see you next time in the other opening principle videos.